Alright, so I actually saw this article when it first came out in 2019, but I never made a video about it. I don't remember why. But I'm making the video now because Jacob resent it to me because apparently, even though the original was in 2019, I guess the article was like rewritten again in November of 2023. So I don't know. People are still talking about it, I guess. Anyway, Jacob sent it to me, and I guess now I'll finally make the video. So apparently, SJWs are now finding one of the least offensive sitcoms ever made offensive. I mean, not really a shock. They find everything offensive. We know this. We've been over this for the last 10 years. Let's not repeat things we already know, even for the slow people, okay? Apparently, Seinfeld is offensive. Seinfeld? Okay. Goddamn. Before I even read the article, like, imagine when these fucking SJWs watch shows before the 90s. Imagine, well, actually, even in the 90s, imagine if they found Married with Children. Imagine that. Imagine how the fat acceptance movement would react if they saw Al fucking Bundy. Imagine how they would react if they saw All in the Family. If you don't know All in the Family, you should watch it. It's like one of the greatest sitcoms ever made from the 70s. But regardless, imagine when SJWs discover Archie fucking Bunker. It is unfathomable. The belches of screams you will hear. Regardless, let's see what's wrong with Seinfeld. If you have been keeping up with the trends, my IQ is over 50, so no. You probably remember how millennials were going off about Friends being full of offensive jokes and storylines. Friends? Now, I never watched Friends because I like good shows, but wasn't Friends even less offensive than Seinfeld? Jesus Christ. But that is in the past now. This generation is currently saying similar things about Seinfeld. Just to clarify, millennials are people currently aged between 22 and 37. And I'm pretty sure Gen Z is even worse. I don't know, maybe. They are best known for their self-obsession, so is Gen Z, shameless addiction to modern technology, like phones and social media, so is Gen Z, and laziness. Gen Z is even worse in that regard, but okay. Anyway, I should specify, for those of you who don't know, yes, I actually do believe that Gen Z is kind of like the generation that will save us. Well, Matt, you were just criticizing it. Not necessarily. I'm criticizing a portion of it. For example, Gen Z is kind of actually pretty split. They are split between some of the better people than millennials and worse at the same time. Let me explain. Millennials are kind of like across the board just dumb, except for me, obviously. But I find that Gen Z is kind of like a 50-50. You got the smart ones who are like, who actually notice and recognize how horrible SJW culture is and want to like get out of it or change it. You got the Gen Z who understand why the workforce is so bad and actually work really hard but appear lazy because they're burnt out. But then you've got the bad side of Gen Z who's like addicted to TikTok, right? So Gen Z doesn't really have a middle ground. They're either really fucking awesome or really fucking bad. It's interesting. Anyway, and now they have another defining characteristic to their name. They are incredibly easy to offend. Some think they just lack a sense of humor and can't take a joke. Well, yeah. What the hell was that? Okay. It could also be that they are too sensitive and can't take anything out of context and see it as insensitive to some people. But these guys have some positive attributes that define their generation as well. For instance, they are widely considered to be the most informed generation at the moment. If they are considered to be the most informed, then the world's even more fucked than I thought. And that's saying a lot. Oh my god. Okay, and why wouldn't they be? Because they're brain dead, mostly. They have witnessed a lot of changes in society and politics in the years they have been around. Yes, and that doesn't change the fact that social media, politics, the mainstream media, Hollywood has manipulated everyone's brain to be mush. It doesn't really matter what you see when social media, the fake shit you see on social media is what's actually getting into people's heads. This could, in fact, explain why they are also easily offended. But how? No. Okay, so I have videos where I actually talk about this and prove it using facts because that's what I do. So two videos on my channel in particular you should actually watch. I mean, watch a bunch of my videos. Like, I cover this in small periods, like all over the place, right? But two videos in particular is where I talk about cancel culture and another video called What is Truly Wrong with SJWs. And these two videos I cover pretty strongly from a psychological point of view why people are so easily offended today. Again, it's also covered in many other videos, but those two videos have a pretty strong focus on it. But a quick summary right now is just that people have been made to be more sensitive. I mean, people have been made to believe whatever the media, the school system, and Hollywood tells them. It's the whole reason why people just naturally believe that conservatives are evil just because the media says that they are without using facts. Facts as a whole have been considered as a bad thing starting in 2012, and that creates people to be more sensitive and weak and pathetic. It's not just that, it's just that SJW culture has permeated the world and created that. But again, watch other videos for something a lot more deep. And by the way, before I continue reading the article and seeing what the article is about which Seinfeld episodes are offensive, let me just cover something myself and why Seinfeld is not a offensive show, just in general. Like, let's talk about some issues. Let's talk about racism. Seinfeld is actually, if anything, anti-racist. You probably haven't seen it or don't care, but there's literally a fucking episode where Jerry buys a black and white cookie because it's vanilla and half chocolate, and literally says, as like an anti-racism thing, look to the cookie, and even holds the cookie up to a black guy who holds the cookie back up to him as like a peace solidarity type of thing. I mean, not literally, again, it's a fucking sitcom, but that's like the idea you're supposed to get from it. If anything, but again, we have to also keep in mind that SJWs think that racism is when you're nice to white people, right? Don't forget, again, we live in modern culture. Racism is when you don't treat white people like shit. So in this in the episode where they hold up the black and white cookie, that's viewed as racist because they're being accepting. If you think that I'm being ridiculous by saying that, then you are not in tune with the modern culture at all. That is what people believe in, okay? Another episode, let's talk about, I don't know, homophobia. There's literally an episode where the fucking catchphrase, and it became a very famous catchphrase, is, not that there's anything wrong with that. It was an episode about a couple of gay people. I forgot who they were. I haven't seen the episode in a few years. But literally, Jerry and George and Kramer and Elaine are all saying, oh, he's gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. They're literally saying there's nothing wrong with that throughout the episode, and that became a fucking catchphrase. It was so known for being homosexual. Let's see, other political, controversial things that were covered in the episode. In one episode where they were making pizza, there was a a metaphor about how, what was it, like, putting toppings on, like, it's a pizza the minute you stick your hands in the dough, and then Kramer says, no, it's not a pizza until it comes out of the oven, which is a literal argument in the show about abortion rights. And they showed both sides of it very fucking fairly. Something that would never, ever happen today. So fuck right off. That's 3 examples of probably many. Anyway, what do we got here? So even though the shows might have not been offensive to the generations that were created for, or just in general, their humor and storylines might seem incredibly out of line for a millennial who has a very different perspective on society. I love that. You know, the words very different perspective on society is a funny way of saying that you're fucking stupid. That is why, even with its cult following, a show like Seinfeld has become the target of criticism as of late. This soup Nazi joke. Okay, I'll talk about the episode myself after I read what they say. But it's not like the criticism is coming out of thin air. Millennials just see some things differently. No, they see it stupidly. For instance, the soup Nazi story, in reference to a strict chef who uses militant enthusiasm to determine who to sell food to, might seem like an innocent joke to the generations that grew up watching the show, or to anybody with an IQ over 50. But to an average millennial, the idea is quite offensive, as it makes fun of the state Jews had to deal with while held in Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. No, it doesn't! It is not... Jesus Christ. The joke is about a man who's very strict about his soup. They call him the soup Nazi because he just acts overly strict and ridiculous to a point of like being animated. It's not at all a reference to actual fucking Nazis. Holy crap. What a fucking connection. It's just the word Nazi being used. It's not said in any other way in terms of like language, behavior, the dialogue in the show, like fucking nothing. This is just one of many such jokes. In another scene in the show, a fat guy is called... Okay, can we just point out that these are SJWs we're talking about who don't like any kind of offensive terminology, especially with the fat acceptance movement. And in this article, they're literally using the word fat guy. What if... the character's name is Newman, by the way. But... or they might be referring to George. I don't fucking know. The article is written by somebody who doesn't know the show either. But... imagine if George or Newman were female characters. You've written fat guy in the article? I don't think so. Anyway, is called Pigman, while another storyline tries to prove that men objectify women and that is a normal thing. Oh my god. Finding women attractive. How dare you. The criticism has not escaped the attention of Jerry himself, but as you might expect, he does not side with the millennials. Well, what a shock! Did you know that Jerry can't even fucking do his stand-up anymore? Like, in real life, I mean. Like, he was trying to do it at college campuses. This is a few years back, though. And because the college campuses got offended, obviously, he was banned and no longer wanted to do the comedy. And here's the funny thing about that. It's like, I find that a bit odd, actually, because there are, not many, most comedians who are actually funny no longer perform because they can't. Our modern culture doesn't have a sense of humor anymore. So most comedians who are funny no longer perform for the most part. But there are still some. And there are comedians who still perform today who are actually funnier and more offensive than Jerry. So why was Jerry banned? Like, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Even when compared to other offensive comedians, he's like fucking nothing by comparison. You think Jerry Seinfeld compares to Dave Chappelle or George Carlin? Yes, I know Carlin is dead. I'm just using him as an example. Point is, though, Jerry is not offensive, but any comedian being banned is fucking retarded because, and I've said this in videos too in the past, by the way, nothing new here, but I just love how people, I'm not sure how much today, but it's funny to think that there are people, like, just get this, just look at me and get this for a second. There are people who exist today. Like, there are actual living, breathing human beings on Earth, and I'm dead serious when I say this. There are literal, functioning, breathing human beings who actually think that college and university is meant for open discussion. I know, right? There are people who actually think that. Meanwhile, in reality, college and university, which is where that's supposed... I'm not saying that's where it's not supposed to be. I'm just saying that it's not true anymore, and people think it is true. Anyway, so yes, in our world, that is where ideas are supposed to be the most open, but in actuality, college and university is the place where ideas and free speech and open dialogue goes to die. In most college and university campuses, if you dare to speak or disagree with the narrative and the professors and the students, you literally get attacked and kicked out of the class. You are not allowed to speak your mind, give opinions or facts that go against the narrative. And the narrative is usually just bullshit. You literally get attacked and thrown out of the lecture halls if you dare to speak your mind or tell a fact that goes against the approved SJW narrative. But there are people alive today who still think that college and university is about open discussion and ideas, and that is... I don't know, okay, whatever. But as you might expect, okay, he thinks society has changed too much and is now too politically correct. He thinks that, as if it's not an objective fact. He seems to believe that crossing ethical lines is what good comedy is all about. Now, I might be the crazy one here, but that's because it is. Like, objectively, factually speaking, that's what it is. However, many stupid people seem to disagree. Well, duh. Could this generation be onto something? No, obviously not. After all, there are many more modern comedy shows out there that millennials don't find offensive. Sure, but they're also not funny. Maybe comedy does not have to offend certain segments of society in order to be funny. Actually, it literally does. Like, that's what a sense of humor basically is. Today, jokes that might be considered offensive are not as popular. Yeah, popular is the right word to go with here. It's not surprising that many shows, including Seinfeld, appear racist and sexist due to some of the jokes they made. Only if you have brain damage, like, quite literally, and I'm not even making a joke here, that's, like, literally, like, we already know that SJWs is not just a political belief. It's not. It's an actual fucking medical illness. Sorry, if you don't know that, it fucking is. If you believe in SJW culture, it is a literal mental illness. It's not just like, oh, well, these are my opinions. No, it's an actual fucking illness. It's a diagnosable problem. Jesus Christ. There is also an argument that there is a trend where pop culture from a decade or two ago gets a bad reputation for some reason or another. Because it was enjoyable. But still, society is more aware of any statements that might offend particular groups. Some of the jokes that could be aired back then would never get light of day in modern television. That's not a good thing. You know what? They're onto something, because you know what? Those shows wouldn't get the green light today, so obviously they're right to not like them. Yes, censorship is a fact that it's not a good show. Like, fucking retard. Younger generations see things differently. Whether society likes it or not. No, whether it's factually correct or not. They just take offense at seeing certain sections of society become comedy targets to their detriment. Okay. I mean, okay, here's a point I shouldn't have to say, but there might be some really, really, really stupid people watching this video, so I guess I'll just say it anyway, even though I really shouldn't have to. If these things were bad in an objective point of view, then why all throughout history, the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and to an extent even the 2000s, why could we all watch offensive shows, offensive movies, offensive whatever, and laugh about it? Laugh with each other. That's right, I do mean laughing with other human beings of different races and colors and beliefs and everything. And we're all okay. We're all okay. As a matter of fact, ironically, but not surprising if you have a brain, people were happier then. If this article is true, or if SJW culture as a whole is true in any regard whatsoever, then why were people happier during a time where they could laugh at each other than they are now where you cannot laugh at each other? Answer the question, fuckheads! It's because that kind of comedy was objectively better. People laughed more, people were happy, and people were actually more accepting when they laughed at each other. And do you know why? Would you like to know why? If you're this fucking stupid? The reason why I could laugh at my friend and have more acceptance, not less, is because back in the day, people used to respect and like each other for their differences. Today, being different is viewed as a bad thing. Today, being different means bad. Therefore, you must view everyone exactly the same. But back in the day, seeing somebody who was different than you was a positive thing. It was positive because you respected people's differences and liked them for being unique or who they are. That's why you could laugh at someone who was different than you, and they could laugh at you for being different to them. That's why people were more accepting back in the day. You absolute fucking morons. God damn it. And that is because they grew up in a world where information on how society should interact was readily available. No, that is fucking wrong. After what I just said, I won't explain it again, but after what I just said, you should know that it's because they grew up in a world where information on how society should interact was readily available. Yes, Yes, giving more information about people is what made people less accepting of comedy. No, what I said is true. Okay, not that. However, even as millennials are pushing for greater restrictions on what ought to be said about minorities, they are expanding other boundaries as well. The truth is that most of the Seinfeld episodes is quite alright, even to a millennial. Only a few jokes that touch on homosexuality, gender, race, and other minority issues seem out of line. But that's a problem too. You're admitting that only a few episodes are the problem, but yet you want the entire show banned. Eat shit and go to hell. And if you're offended by my either Seinfeld or this video, watch the show called All in the Family and then cry about it, you pussy ass bitch. Bye.